into the second BZ principle of the semester, just want to remind you a couple things about this. BZ is that idea of providing extraordinary effort and striving for excellence. So it fits really good with the working genius, and it fits really good with the topic that we want to go over today. So in the working genius, like we talked about last month, I got a couple statements I want to give you. Our views and perspective of work must change. Let me say that again. Our views and perspective of work must change. Instead of being something that it is a requirement, but being something that is hard to do, something that is just, it's a means to an end, we've got to find a different perspective of how God created us to work. How we work in a work environment, how we work at church, how you work with friends, how you work with your family. We've got to change that perspective instead of it being a checklist to being something that you're looking to help people find joy in what they can do. Working genius is a productivity model, so it is not a Myers-Briggs, it's not a DISC, it's not an Enneagram, it's not all these other, the strength finders that are out there. It's 80% how you view work, 20% how you are wired and how God wired you. So that is the working genius. So for us right now, today's topic is the whole idea of the stages of work. So I've got two big ideas that I want you to I want to hammer home today. They're this: work is a process. It's not just a job and then you're done. It's a process. Every job is a process. Raking leaves is a process because you've got to get the rake, you've got to rake the leaves, and if you're a good son or daughter, you put the leaves in a bag and take it to the side of the road. So the whole idea, you don't burn it right now because we're under a burn ban. But the whole idea is there's a process to that. There's a process to cooking. There's a process to sports, to music, to theater, to the way you study. There needs to be a process. So work is a process. Big idea number one. Number two, effective work is accomplished in stages. So effective work. So number one, work is a process. Number two, effective work is completed in stages. So what do I mean by a stage? So I did a little bit of research the last couple of weeks. So I came up with this. The dictionary definition of a stage is a series of steps. You're like, okay, I knew that, but hey, I just felt smarter this morning saying that. It's a period or time in the process. So I looked at that and I go, okay, when it comes to work, how would I define stages? And I wrote this down. Stages is the process where work gets effectively done. I'm using the word effective and not the word efficient. A lot of times people want to be efficient, but then you're efficient at doing the wrong thing. You need to be effective more than being efficient, or effectiveness is greater than efficiency. Because you can be really good at like when I was coaching basketball, I had people that were really, really good at making baskets, but their form was terrible. And I knew that if I didn't correct their form as a 6th grader, they're going to start shooting baskets with 2 hands as a 10th grader, and they're not going to make a lot of baskets. So yeah, they might have been efficient, and we might have won a lot of games, but my goal as the coach that year was to make them a better player, not necessarily win a bunch of games. So it is, effectiveness is greater than efficiency. So I'm a space nerd. You might not know that. I had the opportunity when I was in 9th grade to go to space camp. No lie. I have a diploma in my office at home with wings from space camp from the Huntsville Space and Rocket Center. Yes, I crashed the space shuttle simulator. But yes, they put me in a submergible suit underwater and I could do all that stuff. And then I realized I was claustrophobic and realized that I would never be an astronaut. So yeah, this is a real hard topic today. But the whole idea of stages, when you look back, I was not alive during the moon landing. So everybody just get that out of your mind. I'm not that old. It was 4 years before I was born. But the whole idea of stages really comes back. The best example would be the Saturn V rocket. It was 3 stages to get to the moon. It was the first to get out of the atmosphere, the second to get around the moon, the third to do it almost like a gunshot from Earth to the moon. The whole idea is when we look at the stages of work, it started in 1961 with President Kennedy going, hey, I think we ought to go to the moon by the end of the decade. Do you guys know that in 1961, America had not even had one person in outer space? Every rocket that we had ever had blown up. So in 1961 at Rice University in Texas, President Kennedy stood up and said, I think we ought to go to the moon by the end of this decade. Didn't know what the heck was going on. Ideation, right? Wonder, ideation. Then for the next 8 to 9 years, it took them that activation phase to go, okay, how do we get there? And then we get to this, the implementation phase. It's the whole idea that it didn't just happen one day and somebody said, you know what, it's July 19th, 1969. I think we ought to go to the moon today. No, it was a decade's worth of work. So that's what we're going to go through today is we're going to talk about the stages of work. So the stages of work, and this is actually how this model was created. So before he even came up with wonder, invention, discernment, galvanizing, enablement, tenacity, it was about the stages of work. So the first stage of work, ideation. That's President Kennedy going, we will go to the moon, 1961. That's the first stage. And then the whole idea in that, there's some wondering. I wonder what we could do to become better than the Russians. I wonder, that's what it was. It was a space race. So I wonder what we can do. How do we do this? Let's go to the moon. So ideation is wonder and invention. It's a dream and ponder, innovate and create, and analyze and assess. So when you're doing an event for us and we say do a SWOT analysis, Cab, in your ideation phase for the next alt night, you're going back to that SWOT analysis and goes, hey, what worked last time? What didn't work? What were some of the threats? So that it keeps it cyclical. And then the next phase is the activation phase, and that's the discernment and galvanizing, decision-making, reverse engineering, the battle plan, the idea of entrepreneurship, the work before the work. This was happening from 1961 to 1969 with the Mercury program, the Gemini program, and then into the Apollo program. That's what was going on. They were doing all this stuff going, okay, this is not working. And then the fire on the launch pad for Apollo 1 in 1966. So the whole idea is they're going through this activation and go, how do we do this? How do we get men safely to the moon and back? And then we go to the implementation phase, which would be tenacity, or enablement and tenacity. This is where work gets done. So when I look at all of this, I have a few questions, rhetorical, that I want to ask you. What stage of work between invention, galvanizing, and tenacity do you find yourself staying in the most? I'll give you a few seconds just to think about it. But where do you find yourself the most? In school, with family, with friends, church, just at work, where do you find yourself the most? And then, can you recognize the current stage that you're in? So when you go to work today or you go to school class today, what can you recognize what stage of work are we actually in? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. What stages of work are your geniuses in? So for me, as a galvanizing inventor, mine are right in the activation phase, right in the middle. I'm right there in the activation and the ideation phase. What are your frustrations? So for me, enablement and wonder. So like sometimes I'm frustrated at the top, sometimes I'm frustrated at the bottom. What excites you about work? What excites you about a project? What is overused in your life and what is underused in your life when it comes to stages? So what I want to do is kind of walk through these stages and give you some help on how to do that. Before we do this, there are two stages that get used a lot, shown by the data. The highest phase that is used is implementation. Because I know that about you. I don't need all this theory. I don't need all this strategy. Just let me do my job and let me just be this widget maker or the person that pushes buttons or whatever. Just let me do my job. So you're here about 5 to 10,000 feet and you're doing your job and you're doing your job and you're doing your job and you're doing your job. And the problem is sometimes you're doing your job and that job needs to be done differently. Because we get 1,000 new students every year. Or because there's new trends at Renova. Or there's new things that we can do at Info or finance or marketing or class council or SGA. There's things that we have to do different. The second phase that gets used a lot is ideation. We like to dream. I like this about this generation. That's a generation I live in. I'm a dreamer. My wife is a realist. So sometimes Danielle's like, nope, that won't work. No, I'm like, can I just dream a little? But the idea is I think the second phase is dreaming because we were designed that way, to dream. I think the phase, and according to data, that doesn't get used hardly at all is activation. Because we have a dream and then we jump to doing the job. We don't take the time to stop and go, okay, who does this job need to be worked out with? All right, I'm going to do this at church. Who do I need to talk to? Where does my heart need to be? I run sound at church. It's not fun to wake up at 7 a.m. and be there. But like if I just go and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do sound, but if I don't take the time to know where my heart is before I go, I'm actually hurting the ministry of the church, even though I might be doing my job. So that activation phase. And I would challenge you that we don't do that well. We don't do that well. It's, there's an old adage that says ready, fire, aim. We are more ready, dreaming. And then actually, I get it wrong the first time. It's ready, aim, fire is how it's supposed to be. We do ready, fire, aim. See, I'm even doing it wrong the first time. So the whole idea of that is it is more of us as we're ready. I'm going to fire and then I'm going to figure it out later. You can leave a lot of people in your wake and you can hurt a lot of people by doing it that way. I think churches burn people out because pastors have great ideas and they don't think about what it's going to take to get the work done. And the people go do it, and the pastor has another idea, and the people go do it, and the pastor has another idea, and the people go do it, and finally people are like, I'm tired. Because 20% of the work at a church gets done, or 80% of the work gets done by 20% of the people. So I don't think we do activation well. So we're going to walk through these three. So the whole idea is awareness, buy-in, and ownership. So like with BZ, I want you to be aware of it so that you can buy in, so you can accept it, so that you can take ownership of it. I want you to get better. You're not going to be perfect at this. I'm not perfect at this. I'm still learning how to activate. But what do we mean by awareness? There are three things in awareness I want you to do. I want you to be self-aware. Because the best leaders are self-aware leaders. So with the stages of work, you need to define where you usually find yourself working. A lot of you in the room, most of us on our team, is enablement tenacity. You're working in the implementation. You might be like, well, I just work at Renova. I just work at the info desk. I'm just doing videos or pictures or graphic design or whatever. I don't need to go up into implement ideation. Actually, at times you do, because there are sometimes we need to ask the question, the wonder, are we doing the right thing? Are we missing an opportunity to make this better for the team or make this better for the guest? So you have to have self-awareness. You need to be aware of where your tendencies are, because if you're sitting in a group meeting and you're enablement tenacity and you're with somebody like me who's just talking about all these dreams, the only thing that you want to do is bring that plane down as low as it can go and be like, I just want tasks. Give me tasks. You don't want to dream with me. The worst thing that can happen at a brainstorming session is for somebody who's enablement tenacity is put the plane all the way on the ground and go, give me steps. We're not ready for that yet. Nowhere near to be ready for that. We've missed the activation phase. Maybe we get to the activation phase and we're like, this don't even work. So the whole idea of this, you've got to know what stage that you are. And then others' awareness. Do you know where your teammates fall? So when I'm sitting down with Weston, and I'm sitting down with Jesse, and with Chrissy, and with Leslie, and I start giving out ideas, there are times, and I don't mean this negative, but there's a glass look over their eyes. Because I've given 7 ideas in about 4 seconds. And Weston is a discerner, which is in the middle part, is like, let's think about how we really can do this. And then Leslie and Chrissy are like, as enablement tenacity, are like, what steps does he want us to do? But you need to be aware of where your teammates are, because sometimes I get frustrated with the team because I'm like, why won't they dream with me? It's not how God wired them to be. And I have to remind them, and they have to remind me at times, Brian, we don't need ideas right now. We need to land the plane. We need to land the plane. So you need to be aware of others, and then you need to be aware of the situation. There are times that you come to the job. Cab, this is a perfect example for you. There are times that you come to the job, you're 2 months away from campus Christmas. You can dream right now. We get to November 21st when we're decorating. Guess what? Dream's over. Right? You're not in there walking around the night of decoration going, you know what, I think we ought to put that tree there. No, that's done. Okay? Same thing with Renova. You can dream about drink ideas, but when you're behind the counter, it's not about being the mad scientist. It's getting things done. So do you understand yourself? Do you understand others? And do you understand the situation that you are currently in? So with buy-in, this is where we go to acceptance. And it's the whole idea of entrepreneurship. Buy-in is the one that I want to spend probably just a couple of minutes on because it's the most important. It's the work before the work. So when you're in the discernment and galvanizing phases, you're doing a couple of things. You're reverse engineering. Okay, I've got this idea for this event. I got this idea for a drink. I got this idea for doing coding or anything, a video. Okay, what needs to happen to get the end product on the table? Most of you in the room want to go, okay, we're supposed to do a video, let's go shoot the video. We're supposed to do a code, let's go do code. We're supposed to do setup, let's go do setup. We're supposed to make drinks, let's go make drinks. Instead of stopping and going, okay, why am I making this drink? Number one, why? So that you understand that you're a bigger part of the team than I think a lot of times you do. You're not just a worker. When you're making a cup of coffee at Renova, you're setting people up to have relationships, conversations, deep, like I think Paris the other day walked around and saw people just having one-on-ones with Renova coffee in front of them. You made that happen. Info, when you answer the phone and people know where to go, you make that happen. I think you have to stop in activation. That's the galvanizing. That's what I love. You have to stop and realize you're not just laying brick, you're building a cathedral with what you do. Because if all you do is jump to implementation, you're going to get burned out and you're going to feel like nobody cares and my job doesn't matter. Your job does matter. But the only person that can really help you with that is you. So you have to stop at times like that. You got to understand and trust and follow the process. So we have reverse engineering. We have battle plans. What the battle plan does, it's not as aggressive as it sounds. I know it sounds aggressive. But the idea of the battle plan is you're stopping and going, okay, I'm planning this event for SGA. Who else needs to be involved? You're just stopping. Cap, who else needs to be involved? We're doing this special for Renova. What else? What other product do we need to order? And you're thinking through all those things so it's not like the day before the drink launches go, oh, you know what? We forgot to get whipped cream. Oops. Well, then the drink's not ready. So you might be doing great implementation, but you miss an important element. Activation is this. It's the brakes of a project. Great idea. It's the brakes to go, wait, is this the right thing to do? Do we have everything we need? What kind of work is this going to create on other people? I think that's the key, and I want everybody to listen to me, especially for this. If all you get out of this is this, then I've accomplished something. We have to care more about the human capital than the product that's produced. We got to care more about the people that have to do the work than we do about the product that's being produced. And I think in our world, we're like, great idea, get it done. And you're like, you didn't realize that that's going to mean that the ops guys in the middle of Moonlight Madness have to do this, and this. And you just added one more thing. Well, just one more thing, it's just one more table. Still another table. We have to care more about people than we do about the product. So that's activation. So you've got to be in there and you've got to do that work before the work. And I know a lot of you are like, I hate reverse engineering. Well, get over it. Like as a parent, I've got a reverse engineering thing. Okay, yeah, I got to go discipline a child. But I need to always be thinking, okay, what am I teaching him? What am I teaching her? How are they going to respond? Where are they in their life? What are they struggling with? Because I want to win the heart, not the battle. There's a difference. Because if I win the battle, all I'm going to have is a messy battlefield. If I win the heart, there might still be a messy battlefield, but I'm winning the person. And that's a key thing. So we've got awareness, we got buy-in, and then when we go to ownership, and we'll end real quick, you need to have conviction and courage. Sometimes conviction to be in the stage of work you need to be in. Courage to say, like, guys, we're not there right now. We need to just get the job done. I think of ops. You guys got big brains and you work hard, but when it comes to setup nights, you just follow the diagram. We don't need to think through everything. We don't need to process. We just need to get things done. That happens. Your execs do that beforehand. And that's where the execs of ops, you better be thinking through all that stuff, because when it comes to setup, you're getting the setups done. You're there to serve and share, meaning like you're going to use your gifts where your working geniuses are, but you're also going to share and celebrate the working geniuses of others. And then you're just going to collaborate with others. And it's the idea of it's leadership, not doership. Let's be honest. A lot of you in the room, even myself, I can get this done. I'd rather get it done myself than give it to somebody else because I feel like I'm better. I don't think I feel like that sounded really bad. But the idea is, but that's the way the truth of it is. I'm not going to delegate this because I don't trust other people. You're like, no, I'm not going to delegate this because I don't want to hurt other people. No. Be willing to collaborate and delegate and understand that for me, I'm not an enablement tenacity and I need people who are. I'm not a wanderer and I need people who are. And it's okay for me to admit that that's a weakness of mine. It just makes my strengths better and it allows me to work with other people. So in the stages of work, every stage of work you'll be in, you're going to be at sometimes in the dream phase. If you're not a dreamer, get used to being in the dream phase sometimes. You're going to have to be in activation. Slow down. Everybody slow down. Like I'm at Cedarville, we're not allowed to slow down. I'm giving you permission to slow down when it at least comes to work. Not your classes, I'm not a prof. But slow down a little bit. Slow down in your relationships. Slow down with your parents. Slow down with your significant others. Slow down with your friends. Slow down. Think about how this affects other people. Develop a plan. And then go implement. That's what it is with the stages of work.